Welcome back to AkamaiTV. I'm Shane Keats. FloSports is one of the fastest growing providers of live streaming for underserved sports. And when my next guest joined the company in 2013, they had 30 employees. Today they've got 250. Last year they did 4,000 events. They expect to double that this year. Jason Byrne, welcome to AkamaiTV.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
What was the gap in the sports market that you guys saw an opportunity in?
I think the key was that we were all fans of the sport first. Each of us came with our own sport that we loved deeply, right? And so the founders, Mark and Martin, one was a wrestler, one was a track and field runner, and they kind of looked at what coverage the big sports got on ESPN and said, why does our sport only get covered a couple times a year? And so since that solution wasn't out there, we set out to create that. And it's been a success. You know, our fans love it because, again, they're craving this content and they can't get it anywhere else.
So one of the challenges of growing a market as fast as you guys have is that your scale gets really big really fast. How have you guys managed some of that kind of growth?
I think that it's just you have to look at it as a whole, because whatever your weakest point of your infrastructure is going to be is what's going to break, right? So there's some obvious things that people usually pay attention to, you know, your CDN or whatever, but maybe they don't pay attention to the login infrastructure, or they don't pay attention to the geo-blocking. So you have to look at it as a whole picture and find what is that weakest point and make sure you address the whole architecture and not just part of the architecture.
As you guys start to manage this, what were some of the key innovations that you developed to help manage that kind of growth and that end-to-end workflow? I think when we were talking before, you were talking about kind of developing a serverless architecture.
Yeah. So a couple years ago, we felt like we were in a good place. We had, you know, modern cloud architecture. We had auto scaling groups, and so, you know, when our traffic ramped up, our servers would ramp up as well. So, you know, we felt good. We felt like we were covered. What we didn't account for, which we found out around exactly the wrong time, which is always around your biggest event, right, is that when we have a major event happen, we get a huge influx of people all at once. So those auto-scaling groups and things like that do respond, but they take, you know, several minutes to bring up more servers, and sometimes you don't have several minutes. So you're left with a situation of you know, allotting additional servers more than you need to deal with that ahead of time. So we looked at it and we said, you know, what can we do? My CEO said to me, like, if you were starting from scratch, what would you do to fix this? And, you know, looking at where the industry was going, I said serverless. And so the team really rallied behind it. They got super excited about embracing that new technology. So over the past 18 months, we've migrated, you know, all of our APIs into a serverless framework that can, you know, just be completely elastic with us. We don't have to worry about auto-scaling groups. We don't have to worry about pre-provisioning servers. And it's been pretty amazing. And a lot of people are surprised because not a lot of companies have been able to move and embrace that technology that quickly.
We grabbed a commercial that you guys have been running for your services, and I'd love us, if we can, just to take a moment and take a look at it.
That'd be great.
Can we roll tape, please?
That was crazy. All I was really thinking about at that point in my life was wrestling.
And if I stay on this leg and he pulls me down.
Welcome back. We were talking about the serverless architecture that you guys have put together. How is it? It sounds a little bit to me like you're kind of assembling the airplane while you're flying it, or was this a more kind of incremental approach where you took a stepwise approach to deploying the innovations you guys developed?
Yeah, I think a lot of people make the mistake of thinking you have to jump all the way in and all the way out. But there's ways that you can kind of start picking off pieces of your infrastructure and say, okay, we're going to move this to serverless. Now we're going to move this. So you don't have to do it all at once. And also, so we did a little bit of that. but also we did a whole lot of testing. So we even once we completed our entire serverless architecture, we didn't just flip the switch at once. We would roll over one of our smaller events and then a little bit bigger events, and just kind of make sure that everything was flying straight. And eventually, I don't remember the exact date, but maybe 6 months ago or so, we were able to go, at least for our APIs, 100% on the serverless architecture, and haven't looked back. We've loved it, haven't had to fret the influx of traffic anymore, so it's a big relief.
Do you have a sense of any improvement around KPIs that you guys monitor? Let me ask a different question, and then are there key KPIs that you look to for the quality of your viewer experience?
Absolutely. I mean, we do the standard, join time, exits before video start, buffer ratio, all the common things that you would expect.
And have you seen any significant improvements from some of these innovations that you've been developing?
We've seen a significant improvement in join time. We made a lot of changes. We've also changed to a new front end player recently that has really improved our buffer ratio and join time even further. So we've made a lot of improvements. We're paying a lot of attention to it. We were bragging the other day to the MLS because with Akamai, we had a buffer ratio of I think 0.4%, and so we were really patting ourselves on the back for that, and so the QoE has been definitely looking up.
That's really gratifying. I'm glad to hear that. For viewers who are considering some of this, how can they look at their end-to-end workflow and figure out what they should be doing? I think when we were talking, you had that idea of when you look at a fish tank,
Yeah. Well, I use the analogy of a fish tank because, the fish tank will look solid and you'll say, okay, it's a good fish tank. But when you fill it up with water is where you're going to see those seams, see the water seeping out. So that's what I was saying earlier about looking at your entire infrastructure. And it's probably not going to be the obvious thing that is going to fail. It's going to be the non-obvious thing. So, I think you have to always be looking at, continually looking at your infrastructure and saying, what could break? What's our weak point now? And what your weak point is at 10,000 concurrents may, or what's not a weak point at 10,000 may be a weak point at 100,000. So, you have to continue to reassess as you grow to find out what needs to be sealed, what needs to be refactored, and just be continually doing that. Never be kind of content with what you have or content with the speed that you have. Always be trying to get those performance gains.
Would you mind if I asked you a little bit about monetization? You guys approach the market through a subscription model, which
Correct.
I think is interesting. You mentioned the improvement in KPIs, and I'm wondering if one of the drivers of that is the idea of reducing customer churn, increasing customer
Absolutely.
satisfaction. What was the initial motivation to move to a subscription model?
So, rewinding the tape, maybe 6 years, advertising was the majority of our revenue, but that can be unpredictable. We really found a lot more stability in creating a product that customers are willing to pay for. And as we've had customers signing up, we've been able to invest more and more in sports. So in some of our strong sports like wrestling, we've been able to invest a ton of money into wrestling and do super exciting things, even launching our own events and setting up these key matchups of the top wrestlers who never face each other. Because the viewers go with us, we're able to invest back in the sport and do really fun things that, again, these fans are craving and maybe in some cases didn't know they were craving. But it's been really exciting. So going back to your question about the data and driving those things, we definitely always are looking at user behavior. We use services like Segment.io, and so we observe how does a user who converts into a paying user behave. What are the things that they do, and how can we encourage that? Now, when somebody actually does sign up, how does a user behave who typically will retain for 1 month or multiple months or and so we always try to look at those behaviors and try to learn from that. Maybe it means we need to improve discoverability on the site. Maybe we see that a user who watches a live stream and then watches one of our premium VOD content, maybe one of our documentaries, they retain longer. So then that means we need to market that VOD to them. So it's just always understanding our user, understanding what they're looking for, and ultimately creating more value for them and making sure that they know all the value they can get from FloSports, and they're going to retain longer and they're not going to churn.
You mentioned the use of data to be able to drive decision making. Is there a play that you have for personalization in the use of data? Is there anything you're doing around that?
Yeah, It's something that we're continually looking at, how can we create these personal things. That we haven't gone that route yet to create a truly personalized stream, but it is something we continue to talk about. But I think what we do is, again, we look at data to understand what our users like and don't like. So anybody in our company is welcome to come up with an idea, but ultimately that idea has to be proven with data. So what we do, we'll float an A/B test out there, or do a focus group, and we try to back up those hypotheses with data. So it's not personalization per se, but we're testing it before we roll it out to the masses, and we're learning from our users. And one more thing, I think additionally, we understand our users on a very personal level, because in many cases we are users. We are eating our own dog food, and we talk to our users directly, and we learn from them what they want. So we do things like in marching band. We discovered that people didn't want just the straight-on view; they also wanted the option for a top-down view, so they can see the entire field. They wanted to see all 50 lanes of bowling, not just 1 or 2 lanes. So we're constantly doing different things, and because we're elastic and not linear, we can roll out as many different channels and try as many different things as we want to, and learn. That's the big thing, learn.
One of the challenges of OTT programming is that it not only democratizes viewing, but it democratizes attacks.
Sure.
We hear from a lot of customers that piracy and other forms of and other attack surfaces are really becoming a big issue. What's been your experience with the bad guys?
I think you have to, for us at least, we have to understand some events that may not be worth it. The enforcement may not be worth it. In the past, we've done more long tail, but as we're eating our way up the food chain and working to get to those higher level rights with larger viewerships, certainly it's a factor. So we've done some things like watermarking the video so that we can identify, what the user is that is pirating. We're trialing with some professional organizations that do that. But around our big events, we'll get a team together, and we'll be monitoring the common channels and looking for those, with our finger on the trigger to send those takedown notices, or shut down that user account, or whatever it would be. And I was telling you earlier, because we're so connected to the sport, we understand that every sport behaves differently. So we know how, where the track and field runner hangs out. We know where the grappling people are going to be hanging out. Maybe they're on a certain forum or a certain Reddit channel, how the cheerleader is going to behave differently. And so being that connected with our sports, because we are of our sports, it gives us, I guess, a leg up in knowing what to look for ahead of time.
Last question, Jason. Not only do you work for a sports streaming company, but you also, if I understand, were an athlete yourself. What was that like?
Not a very good one, but I was an athlete. In high school, I was primarily I ran cross country in the fall, track and field in the spring, and in the winter I would change every winter just to get my feet wet. But I started a site called MileSplit back when I was in college. And it was a similar story to Mark and Martin founding FloSports, that we looked at. Track and field runners love statistics, and we looked at what was being done for ESPN, for NBA and Major League Baseball. You have complete team rosters. You can click on the athlete and see all their stats and see their rankings, and we again kind of looked at ourselves and said, why can't we have nice things, right? And so it wasn't there, so we set out to build it, and it's one of the highest performing sites for FloSports today, and when FloSports bought my company in 2013. So. It's great. Anybody in high school track and field will certainly know MileSplit.
It sounds like it's been a very good marriage for you guys.
Yes, absolutely.
Really, congratulations on
Thank
your
you.
success, and I wish you plenty more.
I appreciate that.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
We'll be back with more AkamaiTV tomorrow, live from the our booth at NAB, streaming to you live in 4K. Thanks again very much.